Hello, this is Father Louis Scurti, and this is part 2 of what we're going to call Lynn's story. The role of spirituality, the role of God, specifically Jesus in Lynn's life, and how Jesus and her faith in God has maintained her sobriety. But where did it all come from? Episode 1, I hope you've seen it. If not, just search it in our search bar, put Lynn's story, part 1, and you'll hear some of the chaos with which she grew up as a child up to age 14. And that's where we're picking up Lynn's story. Okay, Lynn, we're back. You're age 14. Dad has just passed.
Okay, well, actually, the mafia segment extended from 14 to 16.
Oh. Okay.
My dad passed at 16.
Okay.
I was 16 years old. So, at that point, I started questioning God. Because things were crazy and I got scared. And I started thinking, life really is not what I thought it was supposed to be. It threw me from little innocent child into, the real world of war and ugliness and mean people so quickly that it was distorting. And I started going back to school after my dad died, and I really didn't get it. I'm like, how in the world am I supposed to go back to school and just pretend like life goes on? Our dad was our protector, He was the pillar. My mom's at home. She can't get out of the house. She's so afraid. And things, it was just not like business as usual.
Right.
So I started like skipping school. I went to a very, very prestigious, difficult prep school for girls in D.C. And I didn't have really, it wasn't like a public school where no one notices you're missing or, and I couldn't keep up if I was missing. But it became not my priority anymore. I needed to find what is going on, and I started questioning God. So I would do things like, I guess I was in the middle of my own sort of breakdown at that point for a 16-year-old. And I would go, drive somewhere, like we used to go sailing every weekend outside of Annapolis. And so I decided like one day I just had to go be near where my dad was. And I felt if I go sit on our sailboat, I could feel my dad. And I got down to this Annapolis marina, and our boat was gone. I'm standing on the dock, and I'm like, what happened to our sailboat? It was a 30-foot huge sailboat. So it sleeps 6 underneath. I'm like, where is it? I run up to the office, and the lady running the marina goes, oh, your uncle, someone sold the boat. And I said, excuse me? Like I couldn't believe my mom had allowed the boat to be sold and didn't say anything to any of us. And it hit me so hard, I was hysterical. And I went down back to the water. It's on the Chesapeake Bay, and it was fall. It was a fall day. It was chilly, and so all the leaves had fallen off the trees, and I saw this humongous pine cone at the top of this long, skinny tree way up in the sky. And I looked at it, and I was angry. I was angry at God, and I said, I keep praying, and I keep praying, and I don't feel you, I don't see you. I said, if you're real, you better make that pine cone fall off that tree. I mean it, God. I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes or something. And if I open my eyes and that pine cone isn't down, it's not going to be good.
No, threatening God.
No, I know, and I was dead serious. I mean, that's how much I trusted in God. My God will help me this time. I know, because I was sinking. And I closed my eyes, and I was afraid to open them, because I thought, if that pine cone isn't down, what the hell am I going to do? And I'm like, please, dear Lord, please do this for me. I have to know, please. So when I finally opened my eyes, the pine cone was still in the tree. And that hurt. And I took that away and went back into my life. And by the way, that's when the drinking started. My entire family. The week that my dad passed, the whole house was full of his friends, our friends, everyone's friends, just packed all the time, and it was like a big party. You know how everyone deals. And I wasn't much of a drinker or a partier. You know, I was too young to be at that time, but I started drinking heavily. And
you were 16 at that point?
Yes. And I had my first boyfriend, who was my older brother's best friend. He became like a surrogate father to everybody. He helped my mom with everything. He protected us. And he was Catholic, by the way. I was not brought up Catholic. And the next event was that at the end, I was turning 18, and I got pregnant by this boyfriend. And I did not, this is another weird thing about me. I was so innocent. I truly never worried about getting pregnant because I thought it happened to only people in magazines. Like, it happened, I don't know where my head was at, but I truly didn't think God would ever let me get pregnant. I just didn't really think it was something I had to worry about.
Right.
So, when I became pregnant, I was in denial. I didn't handle it right. I waited a long time before I realized something's not right. And it's funny because I remember the night I really started to worry was I couldn't drink a beer. I took a sip of beer and it wouldn't go down. It made me ill. I was like, oh, this is strange. I can't, this beer tastes horrible. You know, I was going on 2 or 3 months pregnant. You know, when I finally figured out that I was pregnant. That's how much in denial I was and how innocent I was. I just didn't think I could possibly be pregnant. So when the night before I did a pregnancy test, I was freaking out. Because in my mind, if you have an abortion, you're sinning the biggest sin that you could ever sin. And no one taught me that. It's just how I felt. So I prayed all night outside the bathroom door because in those days you had to test yourself with the first morning's urine. And I stayed up all night.
And no one knew?
No one knew except my boyfriend.
The boyfriend, okay.
And he was sound asleep in the next room, snoring, whatever. It's just me. This is all my spirituality that is taking knocks right and left from the way things are unfolding in my life. I knew at this point that I had been sexually abused. The last incident that happened, which I'm very aware of, was at 14 years old when the mafia stuff started. So that put me in a really bad frame of mind as well, because I didn't know how to handle what I now knew was the truth. I guess when I was little, my mind didn't let me know the truth. It just was this scary thing out there. So now I knew I was holding this baggage. And so when I went into the pregnancy test, I stayed up all night and I prayed to God. And I said to God, I tried to make a deal. And I said to God, dear Lord, and I was hysterically crying. I mean, heaving and hoeing. Like this was my reality crashing before my eyes. Because if I was going to have an abortion, that meant I was selling my soul to the devil. Which meant I was never going to do something great for God one day. Which always was in the back of my mind. And therefore, I had no purpose anymore. Not only was I going to hell, what is the point of even living? I am going to be excommunicated from God's family. So I begged God to please not let me be pregnant like I did with the pine cone. And I told God, if I am pregnant, I'm going to have to sell my soul to the devil, because I can't put my family through this. They've been through too much. They can't deal with the shame. They can't handle it. I can't have a baby. I'm going to have an abortion, and I'm going to have to. And I felt like I was making the weak choice. I was doing it in my mind to protect my family, but I was really protecting myself. I mean, I was too weak to own it.
Right.
And I had the boyfriend saying, of course you're going to have an abortion. You know, we're taking, you know, and then I got my sister involved, who was my best friend. She said I had to have an abortion, and my best friend said I had to have an abortion. So that between the bunch of us, I was pregnant. I knew then that I was going to have to sell my soul to the devil, that I would never have anything to do with God again. So blah, blah, blah. I was in really bad shape, and we made an appointment to go to Planned Parenthood to have this abortion. I barely could make it through the door. My family, the people I just mentioned, the boyfriend, my sister, and the best friend had to push me through the door, and I kept saying, you guys, I can't do it, please. I don't know if I can do this.
Wow.
And I got on the gurney and the table to have this done, and I completely lost it and started, I guess, freaking out so badly. The doctor was screaming, you know, I remember his words exactly, and excuse me, God forgive me, but he's like screaming at the nurses, God damn it, pin her down.
Are you serious?
Oh, it was horrible. And I'm like,
my.
give me I don't want to do this. And he punctured my uterus with the machine, whatever they use.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it at the time. But he really messed up. So I left the Planned Parenthood hemorrhaging, but no one knowing it really until, and I got on a plane the next day and flew. I decided I had to leave everybody I loved and everybody I knew and go away until I died, because I was now bad. I was considered myself, you know, my soul belonged to the devil.
Right.
So I told my mom that I was going to go to school, University of Arizona, because I was at college age. I applied and got into the University of Arizona overnight. You know, they would take anyone as long as you pay the money. And I literally got on a plane in Washington, D.C. and flew off to Arizona, hemorrhaging, and not knowing it, getting sicker as I flew, and thinking I'm going to hell. And you know, I should have been in a psychiatric hospital, let alone a real hospital at that point, because I was all too much heaviness I couldn't handle. I didn't know what was happening with all of this stuff inside me. So I got to Arizona with 106 temperature. I collapsed. Blood all over my sundress. They took me straight to the hospital, and the next thing I remember was waking up with a nun sitting by my bed. I was in intensive care, and I had a raging infection, blood infection. They were trying to save my life. They said I would never have children. They treated me very poorly because abortion was looked down upon. So they looked at me as a dirty person. And the nun freaked me out. The nun, who I've never seen nuns in my life except in movies.
Wow.
Sitting by the edge of my bed, and I open my eyes, and she says, "Is there anything that you'd like to talk to me about?" As if I'm getting my last rites. And I lost it. And I told her to get the heck out of my room, and screaming and crying, and the doctor came in, or the nurse, with a needle 4 inches. I remember seeing the needle. It was on like a silver tray almost. Like, here comes the cocktail. And they stuck this needle in my bottom because I was out of control. And it was full of, I guess, morphine or something of the sort. And I felt it run through the veins of my body. And the relief that came over me. And I was in severe pain, by the way, but
right.
the pain physically didn't bother me. It was the going to hell and being
Anxiety,
separated from
yes.
God. I could not handle this. I was in my own purgatory of hell, and I was like, all of a sudden, this drug hit me so fast and so hard that seriously, you could have told me my mother just died, and I would have said, "Oh, that's nice." The feelings all went away, and that is what introduced me to hard drugs.
I'm going to stop right there. Wow. We're nowhere near
No, I know.
the
It's a
alcoholism.
long, complicated
But
story.
this is wonderful. This has been Father Louis Scurti with Lynn, anonymous Lynn, a part of telling her story to do with alcoholism. But now even before we get into the true alcoholism, we've heard the introduction of hard drugs through morphine, prescribed and given at a hospital. So you can see how devastating some care becomes. And thank you for joining us, and tune in to our next episode. And if you want previous episodes, just go into our search bar and put Lynn's story, and you'll see it. This has been Father Louis Scurti with Lynn. Thank you. Let me hear from you. FrLouScurti at hotmail.com. God bless you.